Welcome to this live stream hangout, which we've nicknamed What Just Happened. My name is Patrick Coffin, host of The Patrick Coffin Show, which, if you do not know, drops every early Tuesday morning. And I'm delighted you're here. Every Wednesday at this time, we pick an influencer who's media savvy and is plugged in and loves Jesus. Although it'd be fun to have an atheist. We'll have to maybe ponder about, having one of God's enemies. No, I'm just kidding. Today, we welcome my good friend, Father Willy Raymond, Holy Cross Father, graduate of Notre Dame, a diehard Red Sox fan, although he has committed some serious sins by associating himself with the LA Dodgers. Yeah. He's also, I want to make sure your Grand Poobah hat is correct. Yes, president of Holy Cross Family Ministries, correct?
Yes.
Father Willy, welcome aboard. Great to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you, Patrick.
You and I went to Israel together with someone who shall remain nameless, although it was Steve Ray. And Bishop Robert Vasha.
Amir, remember the guy?
I remember it. He had our guide had a mnemonic cue, America.
Yeah.
Amr, yeah. Roman Catholic. Anyway, great to have you aboard. Before we, I just want to welcome people who are rolling in here to. Yeah, if you can share it. If you just go to your page, you can share what's happening. Go to my page, I should say. Maybe if you have, check, whenever there's something goes wrong with my computer, I always consult the nearest 14-year-old because chances are they know what's going on. Hello to Mark McElrath, Chris Sawaya, Tony Graham, Beth Redding Jareski, Kevin Staley Joyce, Bob Martin. People are rolling in from all over the country. You got a shout out from Mark McElrath, by the way. Sometimes pronounced McElrath. He's cagey on how that's pronounced. Patrick Novikowski, who also has an awesome mustache. Give mustache a chance. Oh, Deacon Bernie Coffin, one of the first deacons to be ordained in Canada, 1978, and my late dad's brother. Good to have you, Uncle Deacon Bernie. Mike DeHoya, Mike Tripp, Tony Graham. My gosh, it's just rolling in. So Julie Schramm, of course. Hello, Father Raymond, Holy Land. She's a fellow 13 pilgrim. Yeah. Remember Julie?
Yep.
From our Omaha Mafia family. So Father Willy, we're going to get to questions. I know you're going to have some, So the topic is, well, it's multiform because this is a live stream and not really an interview. I'd like to talk to you about how Christians are viewed in films and how Christian content is treated by film distributors. I just mentioned off the air that the movie Unplanned has been effectively banned in Canada. But also there's interest in the pro-life cause. You look at one movie. Are you scolding me? Who's being scolded here?
No, someone. There's a priest at my door, and he doesn't realize I'm on air. So.
Oh, very good. Awesome. So it's good to know that we raid. All right.
I shoot him away.
Awesome. I wish I had the power. Father, shoo. Say that to my good pastor. You've got Unplanned, Gosnell, and the upcoming Roe v. Wade movies that are. I know they're all three of them have been successful so far. Roe v. Wade is not out yet, but I've interviewed the director-writer Nick Loeb, and they have really fought an uphill battle to get this thing written and shot, and you can sort of. It's a good metric about what kind of person you are, based on what kind of enemies you gather in life. So I want to talk about that. Those are good questions. Also want to mention our trip to Germany, of which you are our happy. Just one sec. Yeah, can't. At the end. At the end. Sorry about that. Oberammergau, Germany, Catholic Bavaria. So that's going to be fun too. We're happy to announce that our early bird special has been extended to incorporate Father's Day, $100 off. But more about that as we go along. So, but enough about me, Father. You talk about me. No. You're from a family of 12 in beautiful Maine, and you were ordained. I want to say 1964.
No, 1971.
71. Did you join the Holy Cross Fathers in 64?
64, exactly.
So I was a year old, which means you've been ordained at least 20 years.
48 years.
Amazing.
Coming on.
Thanks be to God.
But actually, I should mention that in 1964, I moved from Canada to the United States. Although I was born in Maine and I grew up there, but I went to school at St. Joseph's University in Memramcook, New Brunswick.
Memramcook, New Brunswick.
It's a bilingual university run by Holy Cross.
Okay. Is that
And they had a major impact on my life, and it's, I think, in part why I'm in the congregation of Holy Cross today.
I didn't realize that they ran a school there. I grew up, I made all my sacraments in a Holy Cross parish in Halifax, then called Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And
Sure.
I grew up hearing about Brother Andre my whole life, long before he was blessed or anything like that, and gobbled up biographies on him. So I feel close with the Holy Cross congregation. Now, how far is Memramcook from what's the name of that place? Rogersville.
Oh,
Notre Dame de
Rogersville.
Calvaire. There's a Trappist monastery there.
Yes, it's I'm not sure how far it is. We would hear about Rogersville. I've never been there, but we're only 17 miles from Moncton.
I got
because I know we made a pilgrimage on foot from Memramcook to. We used to do that every year.
Mm-hmm.
So I was there for high school and the first 2 years of university.
Okay, and then
and then continued at Stonehill College here.
I see. And then you eventually how many years were you in the marrow of Hollywood? Because I know a lot of people in the entertainment industry who see you still as a father figure, mentor, rock star.
Yeah, 14 years.
14 years? Okay.
Yes. I went there in 2000, and I left there in 2014.
And I've been to the facility there. Talk about, I mean, it's literally in Hollywood. It's on Sunset Boulevard.
Yes.
I was a stunt teacher for Barbara Nicolosi in the RCAA program, and got to know Tony Sands and the crew there.
Sure.
And that's when I really learned more about Father Patrick Peyton. Now, you tell me what your official role or title is with respect to his cause for canonization. What's your role?
I'm the agent.
You're the agent. Okay.
I'm sorry. No, it's the actor.
Very. See, there's a Freudian slip. See, if you spend 14 years in Hollywood, you mix up agent with actor all the time.
Yes,
It's understandable.
It's actually, when we finished the positio, which is a summary of his case, in part finishing part one of a 4-part process.
Yep.
Towards canonization as a saint, we brought the positio to Rome. Cardinal Tagle from Manila in the Philippines came, and Father David Marcham, our vice postulator, and Dr. Andrea Ambrosi. We all went. I handed it to the prefect of the Congregation for Saints.
Was that Angelo Amata?
It was, yes.
Amata? Okay. Yeah, I know his name because he was the one who beatified one of my spiritual, what's the word? Clients is not, whatever the reverse of clients are. Spiritual, I don't know, guides, a cloud of witnesses, a blessed Cara Lucia Badano. He beatified her in the presence of her parents in 2010.
Wow.
And Dr. Ambrosi, is he the first lay devil's advocate? Is that his official title, or was it?
No, he's the postulator. He is just the opposite of the devil's advocate. He's the promoter of the cause. And
I see.
He's really the expert, and he handled Venerable Fulton Sheen, soon to be beatified as soon as he's out of court. And,
your lips to God's ears.
and Brother Andre, Father Blessed Basil Moreau, the founder of Holy Cross. Mm-hmm. So he's handled over 400 cases himself, and he is a layman. I don't know if there are many other lay people that are also postulators of causes.
I'm a kind of amateur student of the. I won't call it a race, but if I call it a race, I mean it affectionately. The race to get to the canonization finish line. Bishop Sheen is one of them. Father Walter Chizek, Servant of God Terrence Cook, Servant of God. I think he's Servant of God. Father. Just one sec here. No.
Is there a Capodanno?
Yes, Servant of God Vincent Capodanno. Also Emil Capon, the Korean War era. Father Nelson Baker, Michael McGivney, the founder of the Knights of Columbus.
Yes.
So, and I always, mentally, because I associate him with Princess Grace and his friendships with people like Frank Capra and John Ford, Father Peyton, I thought he was a virus extraction, but he was born in the Old Sod, wasn't he? He was not an American citizen by birth.
He was naturalized American citizen, but he was born in County Mayo in 1909. little village of Adimas, Castle.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's now you can go there and visit his. There's the memorial center in Adimas. It's the biggest thing in town after the church.
I'll bet. Isn't there in litigation battles about his remains? Oh no, sorry, that's Bishop
No,
Sheen, sorry.
no, there's no battle. We
Yeah, Clayton Emmer rightly says
he's resting right here, about a quarter of a mile from where I am right now in Easton, Massachusetts, on the campus at Stonehill College.
Now
in the Holy Cross Cemetery.
He was Holy Cross himself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clayton points out. Clayton Emmer says, "Hey, that there are two blesseds, Blessed Solanus Casey, who is very similar in temperament and charism, you could say, with Saint Brother Andre, and also Stanley Rother, the martyr from Oklahoma, Ocartha, Oklahoma, who died in Guatemala in 1981. So there's a long list. How did you hear about Father Peyton? Do you remember his Rosary Crusades when you were growing up? Was he on your radar? Because he would arrange these massive events. If you Google image San Francisco Rosary Crusade, I think it's like 650,000 people. It's a sea of humanity. How did you first hear about Father Peyton?
You know, it was, in my consciousness anyway, it was not until I entered Holy Cross. I did not hear about him. And I knew about Brother Andre. I think my grandmother was like a neighborhood organizer up in Caribou, Maine, for Petit Frère André. Mm-hmm. And but Father Peyton, certainly in 1964 when I joined Holy Cross, he was a world-renowned figure at the time. He had been that was right around the time, I think 1961 was the Golden Gate Park Rosary Rally, and it's the largest. I think it's still the largest religious gathering in the United States. Mm-hmm. 550,000 is the official family rosary count for that.
I see.
And being in California, I ran into a lot of elderly people who remembered being there as a child.
Oh wow, that's great. I'm looking for something here. I want to post it.
But I was like most teenagers and early, I was not conscious of the family rosary rallies until I joined Holy Cross.
Imagine that, a teenager not knowing about the rosary rallies. I'm going to put a link here. It's from YouTube. I'm cross-listing it here into Facebook. It's the multi-part interview that Father Peyton did with the media guru Marshall McLuhan. It's the most delightful exchange you've ever seen. Here's this University of Toronto super brain answering questions with the he was very intelligent, Father Peyton, but talk about a study of contrast, super simple, like the faith of a child. And I loved the questions and I love the answers. I'm sure you've seen it many times.
Yes, yeah. And faith matters and he's Father Peyton's the embodiment of his famous saying, the medium is the message.
Yes.
Because when you heard Father Peyton speak, he didn't have to persuade you with words. His whole person convinced and persuaded you. He really was the message.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. He spoke with a childlike directness.
Yeah.
There was a kind of a natural. You hate the word charisma because it's overused now, but yeah, he was all in with what he was saying, and he kind of exuded that peace. He was born in 1909.
Yes.
Okay. When did he die?
1992.
92. Did you meet him?
He died not far from you in San Pedro, California.
Oh, really? Okay.
The Little Sisters of the Poor.
Okay.
On June 3rd. And actually, it was a woman, a sister from Newfoundland, Mother Anthony, who was at his bedside when he died. Mm-hmm. And she said the final words that he spoke were, "Mary, my queen, my mother."
Beautiful.
That's
awesome. Again, not wasting a word. Did you ever get to meet him in the person?
Many times, because we're in the same eastern province of Holy Cross. So I think in 1964 was the first time I met him. He would visit the seminary, and in the seminary you have someone, whether he has talent or not, is designated as the barber. And so,
like the cantor.
Father Peyton would never pay for something if he could get it for free.
Yeah.
So he got Hugh Cleary, who was our barber and a classmate of mine, to give him a haircut.
Mm-hmm.
So we were all listening to him while he's getting his haircut. And then he left, and Hugh Cleary said, "This man's going to be a saint. I'm saving these hair clippings." He put them all in an envelope.
He did.
Said, "These are going to be relics someday."
I wonder if he still has them. Probably.
You know what? He said he lost them somewhere. He moved a number of times. Hugh Cleary became our superior general later on, back in the late 90s. So
well, I'm sure
unfortunately, he lost those relics.
I'm sure he did some self-kicking over that.
Mm-hmm. Father Peyton, though, if I could say,
sure.
He in person was a large man. He was, I bet he was 6'2" or 6'3", but pretty solid. But very gentle, and his demeanor was, I would say, close to shy.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I remember on the one time when I heard his whole story in person was on his Golden Jubilee, which would be 1991, the year before he died.
Yeah.
And he was celebrating Mass, and there was a young priest celebrating his 25th anniversary. So they agreed the young priest would preach, and Father Peyton would preside at the Mass and maybe say a few words at the end. So the few words ended up being 45 minutes long. But he told the whole story, how he grew up in County Mayo, very poor, moved to Scranton and all that. And the phrase I remember is, he said, "I'm just Mary's donkey, and I've brought her wherever she wanted me to take her."
I think St. Jose Maria Escriva used that phrase too. Just a water donkey, you know. Yeah. Well, our Lord, rode one, so it can't be all that bad, as barnyard animals go. I remember getting some spiritual direction by a Canadian priest, and I met him many times in Toronto, Father John McGoey. He was a Scarborough Foreign Mission father, died in 1995. I was one of his pallbearers. And Father McGoey reminded me in a certain way of Bishop Sheen from this point of view. In the 40s through the 60s, he was I won't say famous, but he was a well-known Canadian missionary. He went to China. He went all over the world, and he was a very dynamic speaker. And then after the Second Vatican Council, he kind of was put on ice by his community a little bit, in the same way that Bishop Sheen could not get a door open to him to speak at a conference. He, as you know, retired in 1969 to Rochester after he was appointed to Rochester, and then he really devoted his life to dressing mainly one group, and that was priests. He did countless retreats, and thanks be to God, a lot of them are available on MP3. You can find lots of it for free online. Was that the case with Father Peyton? Was he seen by some of the younger folks as a kind of relic or a dinosaur in some way?
Yes, I would say that was somewhat true. Although he had a boldness about him and a creativity. He was not afraid to try new things, and he thought that the decline in Marian devotion was a great sadness after Vatican II. Mm-hmm. But he also, when Marialis Cultus came out from Pope Paul VI, St. Paul VI, he saw that as the beginning of a renewal and a new age of Marian devotion that was emerging, and I think it's still coming up. But certainly John Paul II, they were acquaintances and friends, I believe, and but you're absolutely right. He was seen as like he's part of the past. People tried to get rid of the rosary and that, and still one of the largest rosary rallies in his whole life as a priest and apostle of the Family Rosary was in 1985 in Manila. Mm-hmm. That late, and there were 2 million people at that event.
And that was only bested by John Paul II's World Youth Day, which would have been 95. Because it was after Denver. I was in Ottawa at the time.
Yes, yeah.
2 million. That's astounding.
And I was in Cardinal Sin's office in 1999, and he said, we were talking about the Rosary Rally, and he said, the peaceful overthrow of the Marcos regime really came about because of the Rosary Rally the year before Our Blessed Mother and Father Peyton. And he said because the next year, 1986, I'm sorry, the military was sent out against these protesters with Corazon Aquino and the People's Democracy Movement, and the nuns and children and women were out there holding up rosaries. The soldiers refused to shoot at them, and so Marcos had to pack up and leave. And
Imelda, all those shoes had to go. They just had to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to think that he well, of course, so many things to be said about that. One is that dynamic reminds me of John Paul II and his 1979 return, and how that his very Marian Christian witness was certainly instrumental in the fall of communism and the Soviet bloc occupation, if you will, of Poland. Do you know if Father Peyton ever met Bishop Sheen? I have to think that they.
Oh yeah, they did.
Had to.
We have a number of video clips of the two of them, and they collaborated on some efforts as well. So they were good friends.
I remember as a kid watching an actress. I thought she's really famous, but why do I know her? I was probably 7, and we're talking Nova Scotia here. We were one of the first families to get cable. Ooh, new technology, cable. And it was a woman, it turns out it was Grace Kelly, and she's saying the rosary in a pool of light. And that was one of the family theater productions. Yes. Father Peyton had this he had a way of gaining the trust and the friendship of A-list Hollywood influencers, maybe people who were away from the church and so on. I'm sure you've got anecdotes galore. Capra, John Ford, that era.
Yes.
Maybe even Hitchcock. Hitchcock was a serious Catholic, I understand.
Yes. Father Peyton in 1945, he had that wonderful program on the Mutual Broadcast System to pray on Mother's Day, May the 13th, Thanksgiving, for the end of the war in Europe. Mother and the sister of the Sullivan brothers, all 5 of whom died on the same ship.
Yep.
Praying Archbishop Spellman from New York, President Truman, and he had Bing Crosby on too. And so that was a big national success. And in 1947, he got permission from his superiors to go to Hollywood, and that was the beginning of family theater productions. And among the first people he met in Hollywood was Loretta Young.
Oh, beautiful.
There's
Loretta Young. Wow. Bishop. Start the list with the bishop's wife.
She's right. That first night that he was in Hollywood, he stayed at a rectory, and in 2000, when I got there, this elderly priest told me, he said, I was a young curate at the time, and Father Peyton stayed at our rectory. I dropped him off at Good Shepherd in Beverly Hills, because he was speaking at that parish. And he said, I told Father Pat to call me when he was ready to come home, and I would go and pick him up. So around 9:30, the doorbell rings at the rectory, and there's Father Pat. And I said, how did you get here? And he said, oh, this young woman offered to bring me home. And he said, well, who was it? And he said, her name is Loretta Young. I think she's an actress. But that was
just her.
Friendship. It was a great friendship. Loretta Young said, I never met a man who loved a woman more than Father Peyton loved our Blessed Mother.
Beautiful. And she was away from the faith for many years.
She was.
I understand.
Yeah, she. Well, I don't know if she was ever really away, but there was I know we were trying to honor her at Family Theater because she remained a good friend and supporter of Father Peyton's. He died in 92. She died in 2000. and she said, I will not accept the honor. She said, I really appreciate it, but I don't want to embarrass Father Peyton or Family Theater.
Oh, so she felt that she was somehow compromised, or was in maybe in a regular relationship
Well,
or something.
She explained. She did explain later because she and Clark Gable had a child together,
I see.
and what she did. This is all in the book, so I'm not disclosing anything inappropriately. But what she did is she went to Switzerland, had the child. And then she came back and she had the child sent to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. She was in Hollywood. And then she went to San Francisco and adopted that child.
I see.
Who was really her own daughter.
She adopted her own daughter, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the daughter was really angry at her for many years when she found out that she was raised without knowing that she was really with her own mother.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
wow, that's interesting. Isn't that a very, very different attitude? That scenario would never happen today.
Right.
There'd be no need to, because the taboo and whatever scandal, people laugh at the whole idea of a scandal nowadays. I just posted something there for people, and if you send it to your feed, it'll also appear. In 1981, there were 5 films up for Best Picture. One was Atlantic City, one was Reds, about the Communist Revolution, starring Warren Beatty, and the other one was Chariots of Fire. And Loretta Young announced the winner, and it was Chariots of Fire, obviously. And what she says, it's a beautiful little clip, because you can tell by the way she reads them who she really wants to win. This very, robustly Christian premised film, which I love. I love Chariots of Fire. So I put that there as well, since she was a dear friend of Father Peyton. I want to turn to some of the questions here, but I have reread Mr. Blue by Miles Connolly, which is, for people who've never read Mr. Blue, it came out in the late 20s. I want to say 1927, and it's a kind of maybe inadvertent corrective or an answer to The Great Gatsby. Similar main character, but kind of a Francis of Assisi in the urban setting. It's a wonderful little story. And now it's getting more attention now. I think the Loyola Press has reprinted it. Why do I trip on that? Miles Connolly, the writer of that book, went to Hollywood in the 20s, and
Joe Kennedy is the one that brought him out there.
Joe Kennedy. Connolly was the first lay editor of the pilot in Boston, and Joe Kennedy brought him out to work on movies. And he ended up being an uncredited ghostwriter on a lot of Frank Capra films, including Meet John Doe and It's a Wonderful Life. And in Capra's autobiography, the name above the title, he calls Mr. Connolly, I want to say Connolly. Connolly, that's it. A violent papist, something like that. Like he was like violently Catholic, and he really, kicked him in the pants, and really he credits Connolly for bringing him back into the fold. Mm-hmm. So. Beautiful.
Yeah, that in Mr. Blue, there's a wonderful quote about the power of moving pictures to shape and save a civilization.
Yes.
And we actually, it's funny because I read that back in college, and then just last year, several of the fathers here, we during Advent will sometimes read a book and share it. It's like a faith sharing.
Yep.
And prayer during Advent. So, and Mr. was one of them last year.
Oh, was that right? Oh, that's great.
Yes. Yeah, they loved it. The young guys, especially because the Franciscan spirituality of Mr. Blue, especially.
Sure.
But,
that's go ahead.
I think that Frank Capra credits Miles Connolly with turning him around professionally, because he said, you have I think if I can get this correctly, he said to Capra, you have a native peasant talent, second to none in Hollywood, but you're spending your time producing postcards when you should be painting the Sistine Chapel on the moving screen.
I think that rings true. Yeah. I think it is. Yeah, read the name above the title if you want.
Yeah,
Anecdotes galore. Yeah, it's a wonderful. You have to read it critically. I mean, Frank Capra credits anything that happened positively in the universe. He grabs credit for it. So you kind of have to buckle up with that.
Hollywood.
Yeah. I just put up there the link to our Germany pilgrimage I mentioned earlier, $100 off for Father's Day. So if you want to join us, Father Willy, Raymond, and I don't want to take more than one bus. I have this thing, it'd be much more profitable to bring 9 buses, but I love a pilgrimage where it's not a tour, you're not a number, you're a friend. It's an experience of faith, growth in Christ, and Germany. People have no idea how Catholic Germany is, how pivotal Germany was
Bavaria.
Pardon me?
Especially Bavaria.
Yeah, especially Bavaria.
Pope Benedict is from.
Yep. We're going to be in the church where he was baptized and learn his story and hear about the famous, some people call it the infamous, I call it the famous speech in Regensburg.
Regensburg, yes.
And
isn't that where the student prince was set to in Regensburg?
Very good question. I don't know.
Maybe someone who's listening can.
Yeah, maybe a listener.
You can find out.
Yeah, I don't know. Yes, blessed Deutschland pilgrimage. Yeah. Oh, there's so many people here. Cliff,
Wow.
John Kuntz, Bill Waldman, Laura DiPietro, Tony Vesner, Greg Quinlan, Amanda Hibbert Farnham, Emma Man. Hey, Emma. Phil Morgan. Yeah, there's people from all over. Norma Ann. It's just so great to have people here. If you have any questions for Father Raymond, let us know. John Hack, Sandra Lipari. Yep. What was that?
Let me tell you one story that is true about Maureen O'Hara.
Yeah.
She, at the end of her life, she died just, I think, 2 years ago at the age of 95 or 96. She had gone back to Dublin just for the last couple of years of her life. She was asked, what is your favorite thing in all the world? And she said, oh, it's my rosary, and it's the prayer, Hail Mary. This was in that little Parade magazine that comes with a lot of newspapers on Sunday
I know
morning.
it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But when I was in Hollywood, we had a student film festival competition called Angelus. And
I've been there. I went to the one that Gary Oldman spoke at.
Right.
Yep.
It was a very successful competition. A lot of the winners would be nominated for Academy Awards in short subjects. Mm-hmm. And every year we would invite someone to be honorary chair. And so Gregory Peck was, but he died before the event. So in any case, his wife came.
The shock killed him.
Gary Oldman was.
Yes.
Gary Oldman, the best actor in Hollywood today.
Yeah. Finally got his Oscar. Finally, after 5 billion, it only took him 50 million films. Anyway, yes.
And so I was calling Maureen O'Hara to see if she would agree to be the honorary chair of the film festival, Angelus. Mm-hmm. So this friend of mine gave me a telephone number, and I thought it was her office or her her representation, but it was actually her personal phone number. Oh. So she answers the phone, and she caught me off guard. And I called her like 10 o'clock in the morning, and she said, "Hello, who is this?" And I said, "It's Father Willy. Is Maureen O'Sullivan there?" And she said, "There is nobody here by that name," and she hung up the phone on me. So I called her right back, and I said, "I'm really sorry, Miss O'Hara. We have a young priest at our rectory, and that's his last name, so it just came out of me. I didn't mean to say Maureen O'Sullivan." And she said, "Well, it was a big mistake because none of us liked that woman." It was a little competition in Hollywood.
Slightly.
But so I said, "Well, I'm with Family Theater Productions, Father Peyton's work in Hollywood." Mm-hmm. And she said, "Oh, Father Peyton." She said, "When he came to Hollywood, he came to me, and he met her at that parish, Good Shepherd Church.
In Beverly Hills?
Yes, right at the very beginning. And she said he came to me, and he said, we're starting this Family Theater of the Air, and it's just beginning, and I would really like to invite you to be a part of that." And she said, I looked at him, and I said, you're just a young priest from Ireland who knows nothing about this business, and you want me, I'm at the top of my career, to come in on your show? She said, no, no, no. So she said, he fell down on his knees and he started praying the Hail Marys right in front of me. She said, tears are running down his cheeks. And so she said, well, my heart melted. And she said, I agreed to help him out. So she said, I love Father Peyton. And
Boy.
She agreed to be the honorary chair.
I was going to make a wisecrack about his acting skills, but that would not be fair to to Venerable Peyton. It was probably most sincere and most childlike. Oh, also it worked.
It worked.
Now
Well, he did. Yeah, he would not. That's the boldness of him. This guy that's really shy at heart. He would not give up. If he thought that this is what our Lord wanted him to do and marry. And so, in Holy Cross, he was legendary for being driven and a workaholic and passionate and difficult to work with.
Mm-hmm. As all the saints are, I hear.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that I've learned about him. I really believe he's a saint. At the same time, we have Saint Jerome and we have all these other characters who are saints who were not perfect.
Yeah.
Even St. Paul, you can.
Would you want to be a roommate with St. Paul? Ask yourself.
You never get any sleep.
Yeah, it's a good point.
But
they're larger than life, and I'm thinking of Servant of God, Catherine Doherty, as well. Who, by the way, quick sidebar on that. I want to return to what you're just saying, but I'll forget. You mentioned the Fighting Sullivans, right? The 1943 movie. The screenplay treatment before it went to screenplay form was the writer of that was Eddie Doherty, who became Catherine Doherty's second husband after her first marriage was annulled by the church. And Eddie, I'm rereading a couple of books by Eddie Doherty, magnificent writer. Robert Rodat used that screenplay treatment as the spine of the story for the Spielberg film Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Ryan family is basically put it in the army away from the Navy in a ship,
Sure.
and it's the same basic story. So I love that
That's
the
great.
whiff of the strong Catholic faith in these classics.
We have to talk a little bit about Jean Vanier.
Yeah, there's a wince attached for me for a couple of reasons. I lived with one of his relatives. I don't want to embarrass who it was, but I met Jean twice, seen him speak a number of times, and this is Jean Vanier, the founder of L'Arche, a brilliant moral philosopher who just fell in love with these two men in 1964 in Trolley-Bruhl, France, and had a massive impact on my life. He really helped me in countless ways with innumerable problems I was undergoing, and just his insights into how most of us who are not, say, Down syndrome, we don't have that handicap, but we have our own handicaps that we hide well, and they can't hide theirs. So I really loved the man, and I was very sad that he died. But it turns out that he, and this is going to be, because I think his canonization cause will be opened.
Yeah, he should sail right too.
Yeah, well, he apparently supported doctor-assisted suicide, which blew my mind. He said this in a CBC interview in 2015, and John Paul Meehan emailed him as a journalist and say, is this, because nobody wanted to believe that Jean Vanier had said this, and I read the reply, and he doubled down. He said, palliative medication works 97% of the time. Then there's this 3% where apparently he had a sister, I want to say Therese, who was a palliative care physician. I loathe to bring it up, but it's going to come up with if this cause goes forward.
It certainly would come up.
But I have a feeling you met him. Did you ever, or at least see him speak?
I did see him speak, and I read some of his works, and Henry Nouwen really was.
I knew Father Henry.
I think he was saved by his exposure to L'Arche.
Yeah. Father Henry gave me a 3-day silent retreat at the L'Arche north of Toronto.
Wow.
He heard my confession, and that's a whole other saga. But you're right. Father Henry was kind of he was Yale, so in a way he was at the top of his academic
Sure.
game, but he was very depressed and was going nowhere. And I think Jean Vanier gave Father Henry Nouwen a GPS and showed him where true north really, really was, and he kind of found himself. So I credit Jean Vanier for countless things. Beautiful soul. He's just. And I see a parallel here between Father Peyton and Jean Vanier in the childlike, direct, simple way that you had. They could have read the white pages and you would have been riveted.
Mm-hmm. The Wall Street Journal, just the week after Jean Vanier's death, had the obituary, and that was beautiful. Beautiful. They really captured him.
I'll bet.
They said he's in 1964. He's still wandering around, not knowing what his calling in life was, and he went to this asylum for the mentally ill in Paris, and he was appalled by the crowded nature of the place and the filth, and he said this Raphael Simi,
Raphael and Philippe,
will you be my friend? And he said that was, I took him and another man, and they came to live with me, and then it grew and grew and grew. Yeah,
just a magnificent ad for the faith.
Yeah.
And his parents, Georges P. Vanier and Pauline Vanier, I read that they're on a there's a movement to make them servants of God. They were his father lost a leg in World War I as the Governor General of Canada, the Queen's representative, and he had a chapel put on to the residents, so he was very, very devout. And Jean Vanier left for a Navy stint at age 13.
Yes.
This is back when 13-year-olds were actually treated like young men, So,
it's a great figure, though.
People, if you're asking who Maureen O'Hara is, she started in the movie They Met in Argentina. She went on to play in A Hunchback of Notre Dame, 1939.
Yes.
And then, of course, I forget the character's name. She was in The Black Swan with Tyrone Power, and
The Quiet Man.
The Quiet Man is probably her most famous role. Yeah.
Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh, really?
How Green Was My Valley.
Oh,
yes.
Right, of course, Roddy McDowell. Yeah. You're bringing me back. Awesome. Everybody under 30 is going, Roddy who?
In this phone call, she said, the favorite actor of all time for me was John Wayne. She said he was a perfect gentleman.
Yep.
And she said he was always so well prepared and so respectful. She said I loved him, and there was nothing inappropriate about that because I was married at the time. And she said she just went on and on about what a wonderful person he was.
Yep.
And he was, speaking of Holy Cross, he was baptized on his deathbed by the Archbishop of Panama, who's a Holy Cross priest.
I didn't know that. I was going to ask you about
McGrath.
Isn't that wonderful? And his son, his grandson, Father Matthew Munoz, I think is in Los Angeles now.
And
his wife
was in the Diocese of Orange.
I thought he moved to LA, but I knew he was in Orange. So all right, he gives talks and he says, well, one of my grandfathers played a hero in movies, and the other one was a Cristero War hero on the maternal side.
Sure.
There's a book by, I'm gonna reach into my gray matter here and trust that God will finish my sentence. Karen, I think her name is Karen. She has a wonderful book on grieving miscarriages. It'll come to me. Anyway, the book is called Faith at the Finish Line, and John Wayne is in it, and that last minute, truly deathbed conversion. He knew he was dying of cancer, and his first wife was very, very devout. She never remarried. And I think there's a lot of credit thrown at her, of her heroic witness to the sanctity of marriage, and always praying for the man that she loved and married. He went off to be a megastar, and she brought him into the kingdom of heaven. The other one is Gary Cooper. We just watched Breakfast at Tiffany's the other night. I've seen it several times, and Patricia Neal is in that movie. She plays a kind of a paid girlfriend of George Papard. And Gary Cooper and Patricia Neal had an affair. And the story is that she became pregnant and he forced her to have an abortion. both of those people became Catholics late in life.
Yeah.
Gary Cooper had apparently some kind of close encounter of the first kind with now Venerable Pius XII, and that was life-changing for him. So he also entered the church later in life. And I love Patricia Neal's voice. What a beautiful instrument.
Yeah.
Remember her in HUD?
Did you see a program that was produced by the Bishops' Conference and Family Theater in collaboration? It was the face Jesus in Art.
Oh.
It was a documentary. It's 2001, I believe.
Okay.
It was on PBS.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
It's a great film. Patricia Neal was one of the voices. Mel Gibson was also one of the voiceovers in it. It's really a great documentary film on all the attempts to capture Jesus in art down through the centuries.
I'm going to put a link to that. You can probably find portions of it on the YouTube. So there it is. John Rivetto, Robert McDonough, Alan Napleton. Hello, Alan, Steve Baker. All these people. Kate.
Alan Napleton.
Yeah, Kate, what's going on? Walter and Emily Crawford, Matthew Laird. Howdy from Texas, Mary Day Smeltzer. I feel like this is like the howdy doody. Like remember Romper Room?
Yep.
I was called PD as a kid, Patrick David, PD, and she never said I see PD. I was always crushed. She never said PD. John Seipel says the church always needs media saints. Why is that more important now than ever?
I think in part, and I got this from a Protestant professor who will be nameless, but a very good student of film and teaches film at a university, and he was saying that he thought, and this is in Mr. Blue as well.
Yep.
He thought that film is so sacramental, using all the senses, that it's really a Catholic art form that lends itself to capturing the beauty and the goodness in visual, in sound and visual and body movements and all of that. And because Catholicism is so sacramental compared to Protestantism, which focuses on the Word.
That's right.
So I do think that, number one, the power of film globally to shape popular culture is, I wouldn't overstate that, but I think it is powerful, that we really need saints, maybe not so much in front of the camera, but behind the camera.
The writers, the decision makers, the framers of the whole narrative. Yeah, I agree. I love when practicing Christians go to Hollywood and treat it like missionary territory as actors. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
However, that's a lot further downstream from the creative process. John 1 verse 1, in the beginning was the Word. That's really true in Hollywood. Yes. Everybody's looking at one guy or gal. That's the writer. That's great. I just put a link.
Pope John Paul, his letter to artists, he uses I guess in Polish, the word for the creator and artist they have the same root.
Oh, okay.
So the artist is someone who is collaborating with God to create, just as we're all called to do in our lives. That makes sense.
I mean, I'm a very amateur etymology lover, so that makes sense. I just put a link to Miranda Proersis, which is a 1957 encyclical, again by Venerable Pius XII, and it's on motion pictures, and he refers to the magnificent power of cinema.
Oh,
the magnificent power. Now, I don't know where you stand on the cause-effect question. You can argue both ways, that films shape culture and culture also shapes films. I mean,
sure.
Filmmakers, like lawmakers, they're human beings. They were raised in families. They have their own values. So I think the one shapes the other. I don't know if it's even possible to tease out which is the cause and which is the effect. What kind? We didn't rehearse any of this, but Father Willy. But what, to your mind, what contemporary films do you think either inadvertently retell the gospel or should really be paid attention to, even if they're not explicitly Christian? Any films come to mind?
Wow. You know, the one that has impacted me the most, and I think many other people, and it doesn't, ages well, I think, is The Passion of the Christ. That's explicitly Christian and all of that, but it's so, I still remember seeing it for the first time and realizing that often the little images that we have of Jesus on the cross, there's a little pinprick, but there's, in order.
It's very domesticated.
Yeah, but you go to Latin America and they, you can see that they get it, that suffering was intense and brutal and.
Yeah, and that was a Hollywood movie. That wasn't made for the Christian market. That was made by, it was made for anybody with ears to see and hear.
Yeah. I still, I love A Man for All Seasons. It's that's a classic now. It's a different generation, but
I hope they don't remake it. I hope, dear Infant of Prague, please prevent Hollywood from remaking. Now that's a great example.
Another Paul Scofield and
the
Robert Shaw, so smart and accurate.
That's a great example of here's a secular Jew who directed it, Fred Zinnemann, who directed many fine films, an agnostic who wrote it, Robert Bolt, based on his play. He's the guy who also wrote the script for The Mission, about a Catholic saint. It's just, talk about a threefer right there.
And, Beckett is another one around the same time, and it's Peter Glenville, who was Catholic and educated, I believe, by the Jesuits, is responsible in large part for that film as well. And it's
Peter O'Toole and Peter Burton?
Yes, right. Yep. Richard Burton.
There's a film, I did a cinephile. I used to write a column for the Catholic World Report called The Cinephile, and I looked at movies pre-1965 and why do they work? Why are they still watched? And one of them it's lesser known, but it's a biopic based on a play by Jean Anouilh. Yeah. And it's called Monsieur Vincent, about St. Vincent de Paul.
Oh, yes.
I just never seen a film like this. It's black and white. It's very stark, and it's just got so much humanity and fallenness and mistakes and bad temper. But there it is. It's just the work of grace in this wonderful man's life. I love that movie, Monsieur Vincent. In fact, let me put that there.
There's something, put that down. That's amazing because, I watched it only in the last 3 or 4 years because of the now Superior General of the Vincentians, Father Thomas Maverick. He's an Argentinian whose family came from Slovenia, but when I was in touch with him, he was trying to reach Jim Caviezel. Yeah. Because he was the rector, this is very complicated, but he was the rector of a seminary in Kiev in Ukraine. Yes. Training priests for Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine. And at the time he was not the Superior General, but they were going to Krakow for World Youth Day. Yeah. And all of the Vincentian family, the youth, were gathering. So he wanted Jim to come and speak at that. And in the end, Jim agreed to do it, but then he had to cancel out about a month beforehand. So in any case, Clarence Gilliard is a great...
I know Clarence. I was thinking about that guy a couple of weeks ago.
He's a great Catholic...
yeah, he was Argyle, right? Wasn't he Argyle, the nerdy computer character in Die Hard?
I think so. My favorite role is he was Agent Trebek on Walker, Texas Ranger.
Walker, Texas Ranger with that's right. Yeah, wonderful.
So
guy.
He came in and charmed the people, but Father Maverick, that was the first time I met him. Yeah, and we've become friends and we've kept in touch. And he said, "Would you watch Monsieur Vincent?" Because it was the 400th anniversary of the founding of the Vincentians. Yeah, and also all those St. Vincent de Paul Society members in all of our parishes and all that. They were all under that Vincentian family.
And what'd you think of it?
Oh, I loved it. I was just it was so surprising. I loved the opening.
Yeah, he's walking in with his haversack, getting rocks chucked at his head.
Yeah, and he doesn't see any people, but they're throwing stones at him.
Yeah, because they think he's got the plague, right?
Plague,
It's been
yes.
a terrible.
Yeah, everybody's hiding.
Yeah, my favorite scene in that movie, and you're probably going to be able to finish my sentence, Father Willy, is he takes the girl whose mom has died, and the poor girl is like playing sentry guard to her mom's dead body in the church, which is wrecked. Yes. And then at this point, the saint's angry, and he brings the girl to the small town square, and he says, "I want a family that already has too many kids. No single parents. Mm-hmm. I want someone who's already struggling." And sure enough, this young mom, no husband around apparently, with a gaggle of kids, will take her. I love that. It's just so counterintuitive, but almost like that's the penance that had to happen.
Yeah,
because they abandoned the mother because she was sick. Yeah, and, I love that. Love that. Saving Private Ryan is another one as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Another accidental retelling of the gospel. Annie, have you ever analyzed Annie?
Annie,
famously made into the movie by.
I haven't even been critical of, or analyzed it, but this.
Well, this is my homespun analysis of Annie, filmed memorably by of all people, John Huston, right? John Huston, African Queen. He's the one who did Annie in 1979. Annie is anima, right? The Latin word for soul. So we're Annie. Annie, we're her. We're in this orphanage called the Fallen World, ruled over by a demon. In the movie Miss Hannigan, played to comic perfection by Carol Burnett. And Annie, the soul, is adopted by Daddy Warbucks.
Yes, yeah.
And now it's not a perfect analogy. Obviously, the allegory, if it's there, it's probably inadvertent. But there's something about the DNA of that story that lines up with, it's parallel to, I don't even have the words for it. It fits in a kind of almost mystical way, our longing to be adopted by God the Father through baptism. And Daddy Warbucks sends an emissary to this fallen world. Remember, his assistant goes to the orphanage. You might not remember the name of the character played by Anne Reinking in the film, but it's Grace Farrell.
Yeah.
And Daddy Warbucks brings Annie to his mansion where there are many rooms. And in the end, Annie and her friends are all brought in through Grace to the home of the Father. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's all there.
That's great.
All there.
No, did you see Black Panther?
I did not see Black Panther. Not because I'm kind of a cinephile. I'm a little bit over the super CGI. Every 5 minutes, there's this colossal clash of civilizations. I heard it's lovely. It
is. It has and it's really about the power of love and peace overcoming all these violence and all that. But I bring it up because there was the Avengers Infinity, and now the Avengers. What's the last one called?
Endgame.
Endgame. Yes.
Yep.
So I dragged 3 of my priest friends to come and see it with me, and they loved it. And
oh yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is that one of my favorite people who just died this year in Hollywood is Stan Lee.
Oh, Stan Lee, right? The creator of Spider-Man and half the Marvel universe.
Mutual friends of ours, Adam and Andrea Jablonski, who were on the pilgrimage to the Holy Land.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Andrea went online, and about, I would say, he was 89 at the time, so 6 years ago. Her husband Adam is a big fan of comic books, especially the Marvel comic characters. So she went online. She bought lunch with Stan Lee for her husband, and it was in Hollywood, obviously. And
no way, that's a great wife right there.
So he and Adam and their son Kevin were coming to Hollywood, and he called up and he said, "We're going to have lunch with Stan Lee. Would you like to come along with us?" And I said, "I think I can find time to do that." So we had I think two and a half hours with him.
Let me guess, it wasn't at In-N-Out Burger on Sunset.
No, it was a club. It was, I forget the name of that club. It's like It's like right Sunset Strip, but it was right off Sunset.
Yep.
And outdoors. We're on the top of this building, looking out over Hollywood. And someone asked him. He mentioned his wife. He said, "How long have you been married?" And he said, "Oh, it's a good question." He said, when I was a young man in New York, I was a graphic artist, and I used to draw a picture of what I thought was the most beautiful woman in the world. Mm-hmm. And he said, and every day I would touch it up, improve the lips or the eyebrows or the hair. And he said, one day my best friend was looking over my shoulder, and he said, "Oh," he said, "I know her." And Stanley said, "No, you don't know her. She's not real. She's a figment of my imagination." And his friend said, "No, I know her. She is a hat model. And I know where she lives. I can give you her address." So he said, I got the address. I went to her house. I rang the doorbell. And when the door opened, the most beautiful creature on God's good earth was standing before me. And then when she opened her mouth, she spoke with a lilting British accent, which I love. And so he said, I told her, "I'm going to marry you." And he said that was 65 years ago, and I'm still married happily to the most beautiful woman in the world.
That's gorgeous.
He's Jewish, and he said it was a very wonderful thing. He said, there was a pope who was only there for about a month, but he said speaking of the medium being the message, he said his smile and his presence made me want to be a Catholic.
It would have been
John Paul I,
yeah. The smiling Pope. The medium is the message.
He's a great character. I asked him, I said, in Spider-Man, there's a phrase, with great power comes great responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I said, was that yours, or was that some Hollywood copywriter that improved your script? And he said, no. He said, that was mine.
Yeah.
He said, I always try to put a good message in those films.
Well, the first Spider-Man especially is very Christocentric. You think of Peter Parker being the humanity, Spidey being the divinity. There's even a scene where, you remember where, I think it's Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin, takes him up to the top of a building and basically says to him, bow down and worship me and all these kingdoms will be yours.
Yeah.
And then at the end, talk about a ringing endorsement of celibacy. If he wants to fight evil directly, he can't marry Mary Jane. He can't have the white picket fence and the dentist
There's so
bills.
much in there, and it's I think Jews and Catholics, and someone said in Hollywood this is not meant to be demeaning at all, but he said in Hollywood in the golden age, the 30s, 40s, and 50s, it was the Jewish moguls using Catholic theology to sell films to Protestant
America. Yeah,
that's
right. Yeah, there's several versions of that. I thought you were going to go somewhere else, and that is the joke about our Lord started off with 24 apostles. This is not well known. There were 24 apostles originally. 12 of them went west and started Hollywood, and the other 12 stayed and started the Catholic Church. You may have heard that too. Well, listen,
I just find there's just a great affinity between devout Jews and devout Catholics, and I just bring that up because it just seems to be there's a continuity between the Hebrew Scriptures, the Old Testament, and the New Testament, and Judaism and Christianity. That's when we're together, there's a wholeness there too. So it's.
I know a lady born and raised in Brooklyn, Jewish woman, Rosalind Moss, who became a Catholic. Now she's Mother Mary of the Lamb of God. She once said something to me, did not compute. She said on the air, as a matter of fact, when I worked at the other radio show that will go nameless, although it was Catholic Answers Live. She said, well, Patrick, in her own, down-to-earth New York way, the second most Jewish religion in the world is Judaism. What do you... Yeah, Catholics, the Catholic Church is the new Israel. So there's definitely that storytelling continuity. Salvation comes from the Jews.
I got to know her too in Hollywood. She came and spoke to young people at Family Theater, at Prayer and Pastas.
Yeah,
great.
I remember that. Those are, you're bringing me back. Ed Visenor says, hi, Father.
Hi, Ed.
Ed, y- yeah, he says, oh man, I miss seeing you. With great power comes great responsibility. I think he wrote that maybe before that you said it. Yeah, yeah, she's come to family theater. Celeste Youngblood, wonderful. Well, look, I want to respect your time. Oh my gosh, Chris Snyder, Stacy Lutmer, how you doing, Stacy Remick, Margot Basso? That name does not ring a bell. Just kidding, Margot. Marie Popkin. By the way, check if you're still here. The folks who have joined us, I've sent several links into the chat box here, and they're all high quality. They're all based on what we've just mentioned. In fact, I'm going to put the link to the pilgrimage, and then we can say goodbye to Father Willy.
Oh, good. I didn't link up. Mariella may fire me. Didn't link up with our Family Rosary Facebook Live because I didn't want to mess this program up. So
well, you can share it either way.
I can share it later. That's great.
Yeah, /pilgrim. It'll be our little secret. She's not here. Unlike you, who can shoo a priest away, I can't shoo my wife away. So we are going to Germany. It's next May 17th through the 25th. Father Willy is our spiritual director. We're going to have daily mass, opportunity for confession. I'm telling you, this is a bucket list experience. If you've never heard anything about the Oberammergau Passion Play, this began in the 1650s, and it was a result of a prayer that was answered by Almighty God when the Black Plague was rolling through Germany, and they did not want it to kill anyone, obviously. And so they made this deal with the good Lord that they would commemorate his passion in a dramatic presentation every 10 years. And no one died in Oberammergau, and so every 10 years. And Father Willy, I think the exception to that is World War I and World War II. I think for obvious reasons they didn't have it then. But and now
it's dangerous not to have it because the plague could return.
Exactly. Well, now the plague is called there's so many plagues. Everyone's going to fill in their own blank there. It's like a Rorschach. What are the modern plagues?
I'm really looking forward to that though too. It's only once a decade, and I've heard about it, read about it over the years, and I know I understand that the competition is fierce among. You have to be a villager of Oberammergau.
You do, yeah. It's a sort of an artistic dynasty. There are auditions, and I don't know how much of it's political, but they don't fly in people from outside the town.
No, and the competition is really fierce to play the key roles.
Yep, it's the town artisans are all, they're A-list in what they do. I don't even know. I'm not sure if it's like the Olympics where amateurs only. Like you can't have a pro. Yeah. You have to be part of that artistic dynasty. Have you been to Germany before?
I've just gone to Frankfurt. I haven't left the airport.
What about German beer? Will you cop to having German beer? Because I will.
Yes, I will. I will be glad to.
That's going to occur as well. And for Father's Day, we're going to extend the $100 coupon. If you call, just go to that link, and you can talk to our good friend Maeve, who will set you up like fish. Great. Yeah, really, it's a bucket list thing. A lot of people are going to, this is going to fill up. We don't want to go into a multi-bus scenario. So if this is something that you're interested in, you can tell from our conversation that Father Willy will be just a magnificent spiritual director. I know personally that he is because we went to the Holy Land together. And wasn't that, and our pilgrimages, Father Willy, you can't, photos are great, but being there in those holy places, and
I don't know, what was the moment for you, like when we had Mass in the Holy Sepulchre, and the bishop, and there were only 4 of us inside of that little where Jesus' body, according to tradition, lay. Yes. That was the altar. And then at communion time, when the bishop came out and held up the
risen, I lost it. I wept. I wept like.
Yeah.
This is the edicule where on the site of the tomb, which is stunningly close to Calvary. That's another thing that blows you away of how compressed everything is. You can hit it easily with half a wedge for those golfers out there. And then to have Bishop Robert Vasha walk out with the risen Lord in his Eucharistic body, it's like this is what it's all about, and here we are. It's fantastic. So there are Marian shrines in Germany. A lot of people have never heard of. Altauting is one of them. Regensburg, we're going to have Mass at the Carmelite house overlooking Dachau.
So is it true that we're going to get Pope Emeritus Benedict to join us?
Let's just say it's TBA. We can't promise anything. I met him in 2012. I introduced him to my late father Jack, thanks to my friendship with Cardinal Burke. I didn't expect it to be a personal encounter, but he seemed tired, but very joyful. You know, once the cameras began to be aimed at this guy, the press just had to stop calling him God's Rottweiler. It's not, doesn't fit the facts. But
if you just met him once, it would be. I'm just kidding. He's obviously not going to be there. But
oh no, we're gonna go. We're gonna go. What's that?
Georg, his older brother.
Yeah, that's right. He's the
95.
Has to be. He has an uncle Georg as well, World War II era writer, and actually even before that.
Who's gone to eternity, I'm sure.
Yes, definitely.
They live a long time.
Yeah, they're very well preserved, but not that well preserved. Well, Father Willy, how can people connect and tell us, before we go, what's the shortest distance between the folks who've hung out with us and you, and also about the Museum of Family Prayer?
Sure. Oh, yeah, a museum.
Yeah.
That's actually, it's got its own webpage, so the Museum of Family Prayer. We think it's, as far as we know, it's unique because there aren't, as far as I know, any museums dedicated just to family prayer. There may be somewhere in Portugal, but in any case, we're just finishing it up. It'll be open officially in September, on September 15th, and then Cardinal O'Malley is coming to bless it again on October 5th this year. But you can go to the Museum of Family Prayer. You can also go to familyrosary.org. If you want to know about Father Peyton, he's got his own site, and it's 7 videos that really tell his whole story. So that's fatherpatrickpeyton.org. I'm
going to put that there. I just cut and pasted HCFM, the Father Patrick Peyton Center. Would that be?
The best is familyrosary.org, and that'll open you up to everything.
Let me just put that on there. Familyrosary.org. Good. Now, be sure that you share this with your tribe, because I would hate to see my wife fire you over this.
I will. I'll share it.
And Father Willy, great to hang out with you. I'd love to do it again sometime down the road. Thanks for your priesthood, and I'm just glad you're doing what you're doing. And keep in touch on any breaking news on the cause. Is there a miracle on someone's desk now? Is he venerable? How close to blessed?
He's venerable right now. There's a miracle that's being studied in Rome by the medical professionals, and if it gets by them, his cause will move along very quickly because he's already been vetted. As you know, there are a lot of servants of God that are proposed. Very few get to this venerable stage. That's really the big cutoff for. It's like getting through the first year of law school, I guess.
Yeah, I've presented myself as servant of God. I just haven't heard back. But they're very hateful over there, so you can't trust them. Someone asked about Blessed James Albione. He's another media saint, the Paulist.
Yep. Isn't he venerable?
I think he's blessed.
He's blessed. Okay.
Italian. My good friend Sharon Lee Giganti is a. Yeah, Daughters of St. Paul. He's blessed, yep. Born in San Lorenzo di Pisano in Italy. Wonderful. Yeah, we're surrounded by a cloud of witnesses, including you, Father Willy Raymond. Thanks again for everything. Can we get a blessing from you?
Sure. May God the Father, who created you, the Son, who saves you, the Holy Spirit, who dwells within you and brings all of God's graces to us, especially with the collaboration of our Blessed Mother. May this good God bless you, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thanks be to God. All right. Thanks again, Father Willy. We'll be in touch. Again, patrickcoffin.media/pilgrimage. Love to have you join us. Father's Day special, $100 off once again. Okay.
God bless.
Good Padre. You too. Have a great night. Thanks again.